Hello, horse racing fans. It is late January, which means that the Middle Eastern races are starting to really unfold in preparation for some of the richest races in the world, and down at Hallandale Beach, we got a party. And not just a party with millions of dollars of purses and equine flesh, all running to the finish line. With the highlight being the $3 million Pegasus World Cup. A race with an interesting but brief history, starting out as an attempt to rival the Dubai World Cup as the richest horse race in the world, but then making a sharp pivot towards the entertainment value, with top celebrity performers coming in frequently in the last couple of years. But how about the race? Even with a diminished purse of $3 million, top-tier racehorses still participate and give us exciting renewals. So let's get into it, and start with one of my least favorite runners in this race, Mixto, or as some people like to call him, one of the lowest quality Grade 1 winners in the history of horse racing. And with only one other win in 16 races, you can't really blame anyone. In both of his two wins, he sort of barely wins, eking out a victory of some kind, winning his maiden race by a nose bob, and then running down a tired full Serrano, who at the end of the day was a better miler than a mile and a quarter horse anyhow. Besides that, he does dance a lot of dances, but more often than not, he is chasing after other horses, but that still has given him a very respectable bankroll. But that won't get him out of being a toss. Number 2, Saudi Crown. I can see this horse getting a lot of play. He is definitely fast. He fits the Pegasus World Cup archetype pretty well. National treasure, and especially of Life is Good. Those horses dominated the Pegasus World Cup with near the front or front-running tactics and ran everyone else off their feet. That's how Saudi Crown likes to be, either behind only one horse or on the front. And when he's up there, you can tell that his confidence swells, as he just keeps going at a very rapid pace. But while he's definitely a valiant horse on the front end when things go his way, he can definitely quit hard, as shown with the Breeders' Cup Classic, where he ran too fast early and capitulated. He also isn't really a mile and a quarter horse. The Godolphin Mile, where, again, he was kind of worn out from the Middle East trip, ran too fast, wasn't really up on the front end as much as he would have wished, and gave up. And then in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, he started in like 5th or 6th, and by that point, he kind of just knew it was over. You'll definitely know if Saudi Crown is going to run his race by the first quarter or half a mile, and I don't like that. So I'm going to personally avoid him. I can see him making me recant my statements and eat my words, but for now, I just don't trust him. Especially at the highest of high levels, like in both of his Breeders' Cup participations, he doesn't seem to bring his best. He's always more a lower tier Grade 1 or a listed stakes race. That's where he just dominates. Number 3, Newgrange. While he's very striking in physical appearance, and especially with his coat color, he isn't very impressive in my book. He has a lot of the same problems that I have with Mixto, but now add on to it the fact that he's been running very infrequently. His last start was in July, and that was a floundered performance in the San Diego Handicap. Last year, he kind of had a small thing going when he took the San Antonio and then the San Pasquale, but then he just lost it, and I just don't think that after a long layoff, this will be the race where he gets that back. Even if he was running at the same level as his San Antonio Stakes and San Pasquale Stakes, I don't think I would have picked him either. Number 4, White Abarrio, the 2023 Breeders' Cup champion, now a 6-year-old horse. Time really does fly, almost as fast as a racehorse. Now, for some people, the fact that this horse is still running is questionable. Many would say, why is he still running? He won the Breeders' Cup Classic, why not just stop there? And they probably felt very validated in that statement after his disappointing runs in the Saudi Cup and the Metropolitan Mile. But I respect the fact that this horse is still racing. Even though he doesn't need to necessarily, he still is in top competitive condition, so why not? Let's see a top-class horse run some more. And part of what makes me a little bit excited to see him try the Pegasus World Cup again is the fact that he's coming into it really nice. Before he won the Whitney Stakes, and then went on to win the Breeders' Cup Classic, he won an allowance race at Gulfstream Park to get his confidence back, and then he had a hard race when he finished third in the 2023 Metropolitan Mile to Cody's Wish, being forced wide and then fighting for second place, and just losing by a head bob. Going into this year's Pegasus World Cup, he had an allowance race that he won easily, and then he had a tough race in the Mr. Prospector, where he had a rough trip, was forced to come from behind way further than he's used to, and run in a sprint race, and lose to a top-class horse in Mufasa, and yet was still closing ground and running respectable against a horse who is built to be a sprinter. Meanwhile, White Abarrio is not. With the hard race in him, I think he is poised to do something good, but he is always going to be inherently risky. White Abarrio has never been the most consistent racehorse, frequently bouncing. People thought he was hot after the Saudi Cup, and that didn't work out. But he loves Gulfstream Park. It's his favorite racetrack. So, I think it's worth a shot. Number 5, Crupi. On paper, Crupi doesn't fit the Pegasus archetype and Gulfstream's short stretch, being a come-from-behind horse who seems to take a little bit of time to unwind. Once he gets going, he can be really good, but usually when he does, it's a little too late, which is why he frequently gets third and second place finishes. But that's exactly what happened in last year's Pegasus. He unwinded, and he was able to pick off most of the competition, but was too far behind to catch Senior Buscador and National Treasure. Senior Buscador being another example of a come-from-behind horse, breaking the Pegasus stereotype and doing pretty well. I could see Crupi again massing up a third or second place finish. He may have only won one time last year, but he was in the top 3 in 5 of his 7 career outings at distances from 1 mile and an eighth all the way up to 1 mile and 3/8 in the Brooklyn Stakes, so he's decently versatile, but he's not fast and powerful enough to be a Grade 1 winner. But maybe this could be the race where he turns it around, but I definitely see it being a much more plausible angle to play him down under third or second. It's much safer, and it's what he likes to do more. Number 6, Stronghold. If you needed a safe bet for a place or show bet, or some horse to use down under in an exacta or trifecta, you have got yourself a golden horse right here. In 10 career outs, he has won 3 times and finished second 6 times. A remarkable amount of consistency for one animal. And he also is a Grade 1 winner, so he's not a bad horse either. He won the Santa Anita Derby, although it was against some low-quality horses. Imagination, the horse that he bitterly slugged to the wire to win, isn't a very good horse, and the third place finisher EJ won the Cup. He's a decent horse, but most of his success comes in listed company. If he's not out fighting another horse, he's usually chasing just one adversary, so he's very remarkable in his consistency. And the Santa Anita Derby did prove that he does enjoy fast-paced mile and an eighth races, something that could definitely happen in this year's Pegasus World Cup. So he'll like the 2-turn mile and an eighth speedy kind of race. It is what he did best. Even if he didn't, he is slightly versatile, with Grade 1 placings in sprint races, as well as the Pennsylvania Derby against Seize the Gray. I do look forward to seeing what this horse does over the course of the year, because he's one of the most consistent 3-year-olds that we got from last year's crop. Now, as a 4-year-old, maybe he's improved, and that could be exciting. But even if he doesn't, and he stays the same as he did as a 3-year-old, he is definitely in prime condition for a good second place. Number 7, Steel Sunshine. If you want a horse who is very experienced with Gulfstream Park, but you want a bigger price than White Abarrio, this is the horse to go with. He's obviously far from perfect. 2 horses that beat him in his last start, the Harland Holiday, Rocket Can and Tumbarumba, are both running in the Fred Hooper, the undercard race designed for horses that weren't good enough to make it into the Pegasus World Cup. But he has a new rider in Dylan Davis, who had a career best season last year, and last year he did win under very fast and more tepid paces at Gulfstream Park. Now granted, these were on 1-turn miles, but it is still something that is credible. He would be a Hail Mary in this kind of race, but there's a small chance that I think he could really do something. If the odds are big enough on race day, why not just put him in and pair him up in a small bet? Or 2, or 3. Number 8, Vitality. Now, if this horse was to win, it would be a miracle. He definitely is a feel-good horse, though, with a humble origin story, being trained by Harold Ladouceur, an indigenous trainer from Alberta who became the first indigenous trainer to train a winner of the Prince of Wales Stakes, the second jewel of Canada's Triple Crown. He also is a trainer who gallops his own horses, which is very impressive considering that he's 57 years old. So to have that kind of fitness and have that kind of relationship with your own horses, I find lovely to hear about. But the chances of this horse's winning are low, and it's going to be very difficult. The Prince of Wales Stakes was a race exclusive to Canadian breds. Now, against American horses, he hasn't had the most success. He was second in a Churchill Downs allowance race, and then most recently lost to Rocket Can, Tumbarumba, and the aforementioned Steel Sunshine in the Harlan's Holiday Stakes. So, whatever concerns I mentioned about that performance of Steel Sunshines in the Harlan's Holiday, make that even worse for Vitality. I'd be happy to see him win, but it would be a real underdog story. Number 9, Mystik Dan. This is a very pivotal race for him, as it'll be his first race as a 4-year-old, and a very important moment into how he's going to be remembered as a Kentucky Derby winner. The last couple of winners of the Kentucky Derby have been one-hit wonders. Rich Strike, Mage. The last Kentucky Derby winner to win another race post-Derby was Medina Spirit / Mandaloon, who both had their own respective victories. In my opinion, to earn respect, I don't think Mystik Dan necessarily has to win the Pegasus World Cup, but he better have a lot more than what he showed in the Malibu Stakes, where he was last the whole way. Maybe he just didn't like the 7-furlong sprint, and he just needed a race after the layoff, so this will be more up to his liking, but there is still a lot of questions left unanswered. He's a horse who either has all or no momentum to offer. In the Kentucky Derby and the Southwest Stakes, he was full of horse, eagerly running on the inside rail and only getting faster and faster, although the Derby was also a test in terms of distance. He wouldn't have been able to last another stride. But when he doesn't have those kind of perfect circumstances, he just runs all right. In the Preakness, he was actually a respectable second, but that was because he loves mud and off-track surfaces. Now, the Kentucky Derby wasn't really an off-track, so I don't think he is exactly a full-blown mudda, as they would say, but he does really like mud. I personally won't use him, maybe that makes me fickle, but the Malibu wasn't even just a mediocre performance, it was a nothing race. He had nothing to show for it, just dead last the whole way. I really hope that he has more to offer in the Pegasus, and that even he proves me wrong. It would be great to see a Kentucky Derby winner actually carry their form into their 4-year-old season. We haven't really seen that since California Chrome, and that was 10 years ago. Oh my god, time really does fly by fast. So, it's been a while since we've had a consistent, good, older horse who just happened to also win the Kentucky Derby. Maybe Mystik Dan can fill that void, but it seems like a tall order. Number 10, Skippylongstocking. Every year, he seems like the perfect candidate to win the Pegasus World Cup. Everybody likes him, but when it comes time for the Pegasus World Cup day, he never shows up. He always shows up in the $1 million Grade 2 races at casino tracks like Oaklawn Park or the Charlestown Classic. This year, he's going in looking the worst he's been. In the previous years, he had a win in the Harlan's Holiday going into it, or was third in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile to Cody's Wish. This time, he was 6th in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. So, I'm not sure what to think. Maybe some reverse psychology is going to come forward. If his odds get high enough, then I'd say he's worth trying. But I've already seen him fail twice in this race. I don't know if this is the one where he finally puts it together. Number 11, Locked. So this horse is definitely going to be a clear favorite in the betting, and he has a good reason to. He was a hot 2-year-old who was taken out for most of his 3-year-old season due to injury, and he finally gets to show himself again with an impressive win in an allowance race and a commanding performance in the Cigar Mile. So he clearly hasn't lost a step and is doing nicely going into his 4-year-old year. One of the oddest things about him, though, is that this will actually be a distance test for him. The longest race that he has participated in was a 1 16 miles. so he'll have to run another 16th of a mile at Gulfstream Park. Is that too much for him? Probably not, but it is kind of interesting to think about because he has only really run at the end of his 2-year-old year and the end of his 3-year-old year, and he didn't have enough time to run in the longer classic races. But with his win in the Cigar Mile, he now has a hard race under him against a full field of decently talented horses. In all honesty, the Cigar Mile was a Grade 1 worthy field, and he also was a Grade 1 winner as a 2-year-old. He has always been top class, it's just his soundness that was always the question. For the Pegasus, it'll be his 3rd race off the layoff, which is usually considered a magic number. Some might think that the Cigar Mile might have taken a little bit too much out of him, and we'll only know on race day, but I think that he still has just enough in him. I think those 2 races were more just him getting the rust shaken off of him. Now with all the rust and chains shaken off, he's now free as a bird, and he has a good chance to win this. And lastly, number 12, Power Squeeze, the filly. The last time we've seen a filly in the Pegasus World Cup was with a past their prime stellar wind. This time around, we have a freshly 4-year-old filly who's eager to try and take on the boys. Now, she probably is going to go off at big odds, because for most of her career, she's been running in the shadow of Torpedo Anna. Destroyed in the Acorn Stakes, destroyed in the Cotillion, you get the picture. And her last start, she was 2nd in a small field in the Rampart Stakes. But at the same time, Power Squeeze has faced off against some worthy adversaries, including the very recently crowned champion female sprinter, Soul of an Angel, and one of the runner-ups, Ways and Means, who won last year's Test Stakes. And then on the opposite side of the spectrum, Power Squeeze is the winner of the Alabama Stakes, a 1.25-mile Grade 1 test for 3-year-old fillies. She likes to win her races by close margins, and she has a thing with getting the bob in most cases. And she loves Gulfstream Park, winning 2 stakes races en route to the Kentucky Oaks, including the Grade 2 Gulfstream Park Oaks at 1.1/16 over 2 turns. So she's familiar with the formula of the Pegasus World Cup. I don't think an extra 16th of a mile is going to affect that too much. She seems to come rolling, and will appreciate the little bit extra distance. If she gets a piece of the pie, it's going to be similar to what Crupi did last year, or if she's lucky, Senior Buscador, flying late off of a race that sort of caved in towards the end. Could she win? Well, yeah, it's horse racing, but it would be a very difficult task. And that concludes our field for the Pegasus World Cup Invitational. Who am I going to go with? I'm going to go with White Abarrio, and then down under we'll have Stronghold, and for my huge long shot pick, I'm going to go with Steel Sunshine. Tell me who you're betting in the comment section below, and hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have other ideas for videos for me to make sure to also put that in the comment section below. Good luck everybody, and happy racing! See you guys next time!